Is Christianity under attack in China? Let's find out. There's a couple of new trends in misrepresenting China that's been happening in mainstream media in the last few weeks. The first is the time-honored tradition of talking about religious repression in China. The second one is a discussion of China's new ethnic unity law. Many people have been asking me to make videos about this, so I want to start with religious persecution. Today, we're going to take apart a Sky News report on persecution of Christians in China and get to the bottom of it. Before we go to the video, I want to talk a little bit about Chinese law. However you feel about China's laws regarding religion, the bottom line is sovereign countries get to make whatever laws they want. This is a core principle in international relations. Countries have sovereignty within their borders. And China has freedom of religion. However, all religious organizations in China must be registered with the government and are subject to local government oversight. That doesn't mean the government needs to be part of the church. It means that the church must be completely transparent about everything that it does. Its finances, the texts that are used, its gathering times, its gathering places, and its other events. If you're an American or a European, you may not like that. And my response to you is, well, that's none of your fucking business. You might notice that the Chinese government and government media doesn't spend a hell of a lot of time lambasting the United States about its gun laws. Occasionally they bring it up, but they don't have investigative reporters crawling around the United States talking about what goes on at gun shows. They don't have reporters doing reports about the fact that the government's holding thousands of people in jail for marijuana possession, which is currently legal in the state where they're being held. But for some reason, the British government, through its media, does love to misrepresent religious persecution in China. And as we watch this video, I want you to remember the distinction between registered and unregistered churches. In every case, this Sky News reporter is talking about unregistered organizations. These are illegal organizations under Chinese law, and there's no getting around that. Again, you may not like hearing that the Chinese government requires religious organizations to be registered. And I'll get into the history of why that is later in this video. But at the end of the day, we are not allowed to tell other countries how they manage their internal policies. I want you to hold on to that perspective, even if you disagree with it, as you watch this Sky News video. Whatever country you're from, whatever laws of your country you agree or disagree with, you would not be comfortable hearing that other countries are telling your government what you can and cannot do. So the Chinese Constitution does have freedom of religious worship built into it. What the government requires is that any religious organization, actually even secular organizations, are registered with the government. So focusing on churches exclusively, what does that mean? Well, in addition to obtaining a license to be a church, these organizations have to be completely transparent in terms of finances and activities. They have to be open to regular inspections by local authorities, and that could include local authorities coming and attending religious services and listening to what the pastor is saying. And if that sounds draconian to you, you might want to do some self-examination. Take the United States. Do churches in the United States not have to register to obtain tax-free status? Do they not have to account for their financial transactions? Churches do have to prove that they deserve tax-exempt status, and like any organization, it is expected that they will keep careful financial records. While it's not legally required, what would you think about a church in your community that was not transparent about what it did with its donations and other income? And of course, many churches do operate like businesses and own property and earn income. In those cases, they do have to disclose that publicly. Think about the idea that people can walk into a church service and listen to the sermon. How would you feel about a religious community in your town that did not allow the mayor or the chief of police or the town councilman or any citizen to walk into the church service, sit quietly in the back, and listen to what was being said? You'd ask, what is this church hiding? What do they want us not to know? Are they a cult? Now, imagine for a second, if you're an American, if we're talking about a mosque that took donations and didn't tell people where those donations were going, what charities were being funded. A mosque that refused to open its doors to members of the community who were not of the same faith. What would you think then? What would you say? As you watch this news report, pay careful attention to the framing, the music, and the statements that the reporter makes, and how even her own video in some cases contradicts her narrative. Don't worry, I'll pause it and point it out when it does.
It has never been easy to be a Christian in China. But right now, this feels like a community besieged. Theirs is a story of pain and persistence.
Pain and persistence in violating the laws of their own country.
He took my husband into prison.
One that the state,
we're pretty aware we're already being watched and followed as well,
makes difficult to tell. We'll take you to various corners of this country, and for the first time to scenes of key church demolitions.
Nothing is happening to Christians in China who are following the laws of China.
We will ask what is happening to Christians in China.
Okay, we're going.
Drive.
I love this title, by the way. China's Christians, Faith in a Time of Fear. Again, please remember as we're watching this, that the only people who have anything to fear are people who are doing things illegally.
We can't tell you exactly where this journey begins. It is safe only to say that we're in Thailand. We've come to a secluded rental house, to a scene that China sees as subversive. What you're looking at is a rare thing to be able to film and document. An underground religion, a persecuted church pushing on.
Wow. The drama, the heartache, right? Again, the issue here is that the people being described here were violating the laws of their country. It's as simple as that.
For many thousands of Chinese Christians, this is what Sunday service now looks like.
There are like more than 1,500
people.
But most of them, they won't turn on their cameras.
Is it a risk for people to have their cameras on in this sort of situation?
I think so. The ones who turn on their camera, mostly just the elder people, don't really care about that.
Right.
Cherry is a member of Zion Church. It's a Chinese Protestant movement, unsanctioned and unaccepted.
I'm going to pause here and just talk a little bit about Zion Church. It's a pretty radical evangelical Protestant movement as well, and it was founded by someone who is Chinese, but lived in the United States, went back to China recently, and ran an underground church. And he and all the leaders of that church, including this woman's husband, were arrested for breaking the law.
It's been years since they were allowed to worship inside a church. Now even this is a target, and she knows they're being watched.
Here, people are talking, oh, you're Satan, shut up. They were talking like, be faithful to Chairman Mao, faithful to CCP.
But your belief is that these are being posted by people who are trying to intimidate you, not just harmless members of the public?
Yeah.
But anguish lurks just below the surface. She and her son are grappling with their new reality here. Mourning the home that they fled, the people they were forced to leave. It is a grief with nowhere to turn.
Again, I want you to think about the fact that this is supposed to be journalism, and there is so far no attempt to explain anything. It's just an appeal to emotion, showing this woman crying, showing this woman participating in a religious service. I can imagine if you're a Christian, which I'm most definitely not, that you're going to just get up out of your chair about this, right? This is horrible. But just a little bit of objectivity, and you realize that all of the people involved in this story could have saved themselves a lot of hassle if they had just joined a different church.
That's in Beijing, a cafeteria. I said, why don't we have a date?
Most of all, she misses her husband. He's a pastor in the Zion Church. But Gao Yingjia was one of 18 church leaders arrested in October.
He was feeling really tired by then.
He's since been charged with fraud.
Oh, he's been charged with fraud. I want you to do a little thought experiment and pretend for a minute. I know some people who are skeptical of China and who are watching this video will just be like, oh, of course he's charged with fraud. I want you to imagine that he was committing fraud. Is that possible? Is there any worldview in which it's possible that the leaders of a Christian religious organization that's evangelical Protestant practicing in China were actually fucking committing fraud and taking people's money and using it for things they shouldn't have been using it for? Just do that thought experiment for a second. What if everything that the Chinese government was doing was the correct thing to do?
He and others remain in detention.
来治理神的家。
I think they came around 2 a.m. We heard the hard knock on the door. So me and my husband put on clothes and they came downstairs. They showed a piece of paper and took my husband away.
What was it like?
Right. They showed up with a warrant for your husband's arrest for fraud. They showed us a piece of paper. So again, this idea that, like, you know, we often hear this, like the Chinese government's like just coming in, kidnapping people in the middle of the night, kidnapping anybody. They were like, hey, yeah, like we're here because somebody decided that you're breaking the law. We're going to arrest you. Oh, it's tragic. Maybe don't break the law. Isn't that what everybody says? Don't break the law. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I was really terrified. As a Christian in China, we knew there would be a risk. But
No. As a member of an illegal church in China, you knew there would be a risk. You could have been members of a different church. Or potentially gotten your own church registered legally. Probably too late for that because you've been operating illegally for a couple of years by now.
you can never say that you are fully prepared for this. We just don't understand why the government want to shut down the church.
Cherry was warned she could be next. To protect her son, she bought a ticket and fled.
How about your son? How is he now, and how has this last few months been for him?
Before we left, my son started to having nightmares. He said, "Mom, will they take you away in prison as well?" He got really frustrated and he cried a lot. "Mom, I really miss Beijing. I miss my home." Actually, in my heart, I said, it's the same for me. I just really want to go home, go back to the normal life.
It's horrible that a child has to experience that, especially when their parents caused it to happen, right? You know, boy, my son was so upset that he lost his daddy, and he's so worried that I'm going to go away. And boy, you know, if daddy hadn't been selling fucking drugs, this never would have happened. When you have a family, you have even more obligation not to violate the laws of your country.
But I knew at the moment we couldn't go back.
The arrests of Zion Church leaders were coordinated and countrywide.
Yeah, this is a big underground organization. One of the things I don't understand here is that policemen in the dark blue uniform is what's called the Chongwang, which are actually like people who are responsible for like very minor law enforcement. It's not like the real police in China. Anyway, moving on.
Seemingly part of a much wider crackdown. Multiple other movements have been targeted too.
Targeted.
Raids, arrests and detentions on a scale not seen here for years. There are tens of millions of Christians in China. Officially, they can only worship at churches.
So there she says the quiet part out loud. Millions of people worship in legal Christian churches in China. Millions of people. And then there's some that refuse. Well, why do they refuse, though? Why don't you investigate that in your report? Maybe she will. Spoilers, she's not really going to, because this isn't journalism. This is just sensationalism, designed to stir up anti-Chinese sentiment and approved by the British government.
Affiliated and overseen by the state. And while many do, others refuse and are targets. Unregistered movements are forced underground.
They're forced underground because they're not legal. So again, I'm stopping this a lot, but I want you to pay attention to the framing here. You understand what I said before. You're breaking the laws of your country. Whatever you might think about those laws, you're still breaking them. So you can't cry about it when you're caught. If you don't I'll say what MAGA hats say all the time. Like, if you don't like it, leave. I mean, honestly, if you don't like it, go some. If your religion is so damn important to you, and again, I'm speaking as an atheist, and so for me, I don't understand how anybody can take such a stand about like make believe. But like, if it's so freaking important to you, this important, pack your things and leave.
Are known as house churches. They usually want to worship independent from the state and its rules. And that is a problem here.
They want to operate independent of the state and its rules. Its rules are disclosure and let people come in and sit in your church and hear what's going on, and make sure that like the Bibles that you're using are like proper Bibles. Like the Bible's allowed in China. Like I don't know if you're aware, like the Quran and the Bible, it's totally allowed. But you know, maybe some weird cultist commentaries on the Bible might not. I'm not implying that that's the case. I'm not.
We wanted to understand what this all means for China's Christians.
Yeah, I'd like to understand what it means for China's Christians too.
And there's no better place to do this than the province of Zhejiang and its southern city of Wenzhou. This area is sometimes called the...
By the way, as we're watching this sort of B-roll, notice how many crosses there are in the churches. Just notice how many churches you see with a big prominent cross on the top. Save that for later.
Jerusalem of China. By some estimates, 15% of people here are Christian, and it shows.
Yeah, in all the churches.
But if China says religious freedom is protected, then what is allowed, and what does that look like?
So now we're going to see what Christian churches in China that are registered, that are following the laws, look like. I'm sure they're going to have big pictures of Chairman Mao in the place of Jesus on the altar, right? That's what we're going to think this is going to be. Yeah, no, they're just churches. But you'll see.
Looks like they've still got their Christmas decorations up.
We started a church with an interesting story.
So the sign says welcome, it's closed up. They've actually still got their Christmas tree up, and we're shooting this at the beginning of June.
"12 years ago, this place pushed back. There were huge protests here that fought the removal of its cross from the roof. It's a measure that's sometimes imposed. It was a fight they did not win."
So this thing about the crosses on the roof is very interesting to me, because so many churches have crosses on the roof. And knowing what I know about China, my guess is that, you know, again, Christianity is a foreign religion. So Chinese people don't understand Christianity. And if you're not a Chinese Christian, you don't understand it. And I'm willing to bet that a government official, this is my headcanon. This is what I believe happened in this situation, is that some local government official is like, you know what? Those crosses are way too big. Why do they have those big crosses on the building? See that church over there? That cross is that church has this too big of a cross. If the cross is over X number of meters, it's got to come down. And then people are like, "No, my poor Jesus." You know, sorry. Again, if you're Christian, probably stop watching this, because you're probably too far gone anyway. But these people are freaking out over the building being the owners of the building being asked to take the cross off the top of the church. Just don't get it. Really that big of a deal?
They did not win.
Wait. What's that on the side of the building? That looks like a big fucking cross to me. It just doesn't seem like they lost. It seems like someone just asked them to take the cross off the top of the building.
Today, it's an example of a registered church that abides by the rules. A national flag, CCTV, and total obedience to the state. Defiance paused, survival prioritized.
And look, they let them take the cross off the roof and put it in the yard. I'm sorry. You have to read between the lines of what this sensationalist bullshit reporter is saying and realize that even her own B-roll footage gives up the ghost. Like, it gives it up. There's a big fucking cross on the front of the building. Total obedience to the state. A Chinese flag. Is it really that big of a deal?
大不大？
座位有1200多个座位吧，一般主日数聚会吧，也就300-400人。
Suli Chan has worked here for nearly 25 years. He gives a sense of a healthy community, but one that knows it treads a fine line.
But at what cost? It seems like this is a healthy community, but it's treading a fine line. There's only one call to burn down the government offices from getting shut down. What fine line are they walking?
他那个十字架那个情况，当时那个也是挺严重的，保护那个人大概那天晚上有好几百吧，这一圈全是人，前前后团是人，挺多的。 就这个样，那挺害怕的。
Does the church feel like it has to be careful to obey the rules, though? Do you think the government are watching what's happening here?
那你不给他们这个唱反调就不会的。他经常有来坐在我们后面听到，也经常来正经我，是这个样，也挺好的呢。
Just take that conversation at face value. He's just like, as long as we follow the rules, like everything's fine. Like, and that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line for everybody in China. Like, as long as you don't do the stuff that we all know you're not supposed to do, everything's fine. We live peacefully and harmoniously. I just don't understand it. Don't understand how somebody can make this video and produce this and be a journalist and actually have gone to university to be a journalist. And it is so skewed. And the only answer to that is that it's propaganda. It's straight up propaganda. It is not journalism in any way, shape, or form. This next bit is kind of interesting. And I just like to say that this guy is like every member of the Communist Party that I've ever met. He's just like a regular dude in a small town. Anyway, cue the evil CCP. Yeah!
But we're interrupted by a timely demonstration of just how closely they're watched.
你好，你好，你好，你好，你好，你好，你怎么样？
这是我们村里面村委书记。
This is the party secretary, he tells me. We've been inside for less than 10 minutes. We have no idea how they knew we were here. The authorities are calling him, and it's time that we left.
By the way, again, you should be media literate. The authorities are calling him, and it's time that we left. There's no evidence at all in this interaction that it's time that they leave. Sounds like the interview was done. So, in these two interactions, you're going to see that the government knew she was there, and she's like, I don't know how they knew I was here. How they knew you were here, darling, is that you're a blonde white woman in rural Zhejiang, or a small city in Zhejiang province, and everybody knows you're a fucking journalist. Like, and they follow your ass. They don't follow my white ass, but they follow your white ass. And they know where you're going, and they know you're doing this story. And so they're following you because they don't want you misrepresenting what's going on. In this whole story, she never talks to a government official. Oh, I'm sorry, she does once. You'll see his wonderful response to that. But she doesn't sit down for an interview. So let me get the government side of this. That's a big cross. Maybe not too big, maybe just big enough to be acceptable in this community.
And this experience was not a one-off. At another church known for its government approval.
Another church known for its government approval. Most of the churches are government approved. So again, little subtle manipulations of language show you the bias here. I'm sorry. I cannot stop commenting on this nonsense. Now, this is pretty funny, and I do find this interaction extremely amusing. Enjoy along with me. So Chinese.
This time, the call takes just a matter of minutes.
喂，刚才哦，他政府里知道你们过来，所以他呢叫这里教会的那个负责人有点怕，他意思是叫你们早点回去。
We've just been here a couple of minutes talking to the pastor. There's a real sense the government know we're here, and they're getting quite nervous and they're asking us to leave.
There's a real sense the government knows you're here, and they're getting quite nervous. So the government didn't tell the reporter to leave. The church is like, oh, we'll deal with this hassle because we just don't want to rock the boat. It's very understandable. It's not draconian. It's not scary. It's just like the head of the church, he's a little afraid. Like he doesn't want any trouble, and you're causing trouble with your report. Like we know you're a white blonde British woman in our country. You're fucking causing trouble with your reporting. Because we know what your media says about China. So we know whatever the fuck I say on camera, you're going to twist it around to make China look bad. And that guy's a loyal Chinese citizen in addition to being Christian. Again, if you just change your perspective a little bit, it's a very different narrative, isn't it? Get out, Blondie! This is the best bit. Come on.
We visited multiple sites in this area, asked about multiple churches.
Was it very big when it was there? Before, were there more? Were there more churches in the town before?
很对。
你怎么样？
Oh, no.
Unease about us and our questions was the most common theme that we found. Around here, there are plenty of places where crosses clearly once stood, plenty trying to keep a low profile. Plenty others were just too anxious to talk. Here, they simply said, these times are too sensitive.
Why can't we hear them say that? I don't think they said that. I just think they're like, get the fuck out of here, Lao Ai. I'm sorry, I just don't believe. I don't believe it.
Another threat hanging over this place is church demolition. Not common, but it happens. This enormous structure, one prominent example from 2014, authorities said due to building code violations. And here more recently, the church appears to be part of a whole area cleared.
Play a little thought experiment. When the government says something, maybe it's actually true. Maybe they just built that fucking church and they were like, this totally doesn't follow like regulations for the size of a building. You got to bring this thing down and build a new one. This one's good too.
The church appears to be part of a whole area cleared.
Yeah, probably eminent domain.
These videos show the moment the Nangang Church was pulled down. Believers desperately trying to stop it.
Again, like they just came in there one day and just busted the building down. Like that wasn't months and months in the planning. Shocking music.
Today, there is little sign it was ever there. An old people's home looks over the site. One woman tells us that a church used to be here. Another quickly tells her to be quiet. But next door we do find this, a temporary replacement, we're told. It's unclear when the new church will be built. For now, it feels like a downgrade.
I mean, it's understandable that people will be upset that the place that they might have grown up worshiping God and engaging in fairy tales was knocked down. Like, I get it. Like, I was raised Catholic. I would actually feel bad if St. Rita's was one day knocked down. I was driving down Main Street in Hamden, Connecticut, and I saw that St. Rita's, the church that I spent a lot of time in my youth, was gone because I have memories in that building, right? Memories. No, just kidding. But like, they knocked the church down and gave them a new building to use. Like, they just built a new church. Like, fuck. Like, what is the story here?
The overriding impression you get from being here and speaking to people in these communities is just this deep sense of nervousness, the feeling that just one step out of line could have really dire consequences.
You're the one making them all nervous, dear. Because they are smart enough to know the bullshit that Western journalists portray about China. And if they're in your report, they're worried that someone's going to come knocking on their door. It's not that hard to understand. Oh, look, another cross. Crosses everywhere. No crosses. Crosses everywhere. No crosses. No crosses, except for all the crosses.
And we know that lots of churches that have been targeted in the recent crackdowns have opted to keep as low a profile as possible. So it is hard to chart just how widespread this has been. But what feels certain is that the space here to operate and worship in a way that is meaningfully independent from the Chinese Communist Party feels to have dramatically narrowed, perhaps gone altogether. So
I still don't understand what this means. These churches that run legally, what is the difference? Someone explain it to me. What is in the comments? If you're trying, explain to me what the difference is. You just don't want party members walking in and sitting in your church. You just don't want to have to disclose where your money is coming from and where it's going. That sounds fucking suspect.
So ever present is the state paranoia about any group it does not control.
Xi Jinping has made no secret of his plans to make religion more Chinese. Sinicization is an explicit directive, and tightening regulation closes the gaps. In this recent edict on online religious activities, clergy should love the motherland and uphold the leadership of the Communist Party.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine in the United States that political leaders don't feel the same way about religious leaders, like, like imams, right? Like, if you're going to be an imam, you should love America, not hate the government. Like, we don't write that in law because, like, we're not an authoritarian country, but, like, we think it. If you found out there was a mosque near you where the imam hated America, no, that wouldn't be okay.
Churches must only use platforms that are lawfully established, and they need a specific government license.
Yeah. Don't do illegal shit.
And some say, most worryingly, they must not disseminate or inculcate religious ideas among minors.
Yeah, I don't care. Again, speaking as an atheist, I'm like, yeah, you should not indoctrinate children into religion. I do not believe that. I do not believe that. I do not believe you should scare children with stories of burning in hell. I don't believe that anybody should be exposed to religious thought in that way when they're children. It's indoctrination. It's brainwashing. It's absolute brainwashing. And I was raised Catholic, and I was brainwashed. I thought every dirty thought that I had in my head when I was 10, 11 years old was going to send me to hell, and I was terrified of it. You do not indoctrinate children, and I fully support the Chinese Communist Party in saying that we should not be indoctrinating children into religion. Join me, heathens, join me.
Bob Fu lives in America and runs an organization that charts the persecution of Chinese Christians. His assessment of this moment is dire.
He just got off the phone with the CIA.
I think this is the worst moment since the end of Cultural Revolution. The CCP, with 90 million Communist Party members, with a nuclear weapon, they are living in paranoia. They would regard any organized social organization structure like as a political threat, and they're determined to eliminate it.
What's disgusting about a Chinese American who clearly was raised in China and is aware of his own history, his people's history, to say that, like, completely unironically. He knows everything about the history of the Chinese people and radical religious movements. But of course, he's a Christian, so he's a good guy, right? He's not one of those people. The religious mind I will never understand.
It is quite the allegation, one that China vehemently rejects.
This is as close as she got to getting the viewpoint of the other side in her objective reporting. We get about 30 seconds. Let's watch that 30 seconds. And boy, I do like this Chinese foreign minister. He is quick.
What's your response to the accusation that China is making it increasingly difficult for independent Christian movements to practice their religion?
中国政府依法管理宗教事务，保护公民的宗教信仰自由和正常的宗教活动。我们坚决反对借所谓宗教问题干涉中国内政。
Again, little thought experiment. Just pretend that was totally honest. Because guess what? It was. It was. Stop. And at the end, he tells you what he knows that she's doing and what this whole report is, which is just interfering in the internal affairs of a sovereign country, which is none of your fucking business.
Back in the Wenzhou area, we have one final stop.
So this morning we've taken quite a long drive. We've done that just to make sure that the authorities here aren't following us, aren't trailing us, and don't know that we're here. And we've done that because we're headed to what we think is going to be quite a contentious site. It's a place where, up until just a few weeks ago, there was a church, and it was a church where the elders were actively standing up to the authorities.
Sounds like insurrection. So again, just like the church, because again, this framing of the church members were standing up to authority, they're breaking the law. They're breaking the law. So we're about to go to a place to see what happens when people in China break the law.
The town of Yayang knows the cost of defying the diktats. This was it in December. The church here reportedly rejected a Chinese flag on its premises.
So a flagpole. They rejected a Chinese flagpole, which you saw at all those other churches, including some of the illegal ones. They just didn't want to put a flagpole up. Why? What does that say about you as an organization that you don't want to put a flagpole up? What does it say to the people in the community? What do you think is going to happen?
Soon after, its cross was forcibly removed, and wanted posters preceded the arrest of its elders.
It wasn't a secret arrest, was it?
When we arrive in Yaoyang, at first it feels very business as usual, but it is not.
I'm pretty sure it's business as usual, except when the white Sky News reporter shows up in town with her camera crew.
In no time at all, it becomes clear we're being trailed. It takes us a moment to find it, but this is what they do not want us to see. The site where the church once stood, now flattened.
So the site where this church was taken down is literally just up here. There's lots of police. We're pretty aware we're already being watched and followed as well.
Extreme measures were taken to prevent locals filming what happened here.
Extreme measures were apparently metal barricades. Sliding metal barricades on wheels. Extreme measures.
We were no exception.
Yeah, they're coming at us now.
Okay.
Let me jump in the back. Drive.
I think we should go, guys, if we can.
Can we go?
Authorities did not respond when we asked why they demolished the church. The response here says plenty.
As we got back in our car, it's now being surrounded by probably half a dozen people, and we're not being allowed to leave.
It is the clearest demonstration of how sensitive this has become. For this family, there is at least some safety abroad. But their ordeal is far from over.
An ordeal that could have been prevented if you didn't marry a guy who was running an illegal church in China. That's also, I want to remind you all, extremely right-wing, evangelical fundamentalist. So if you are somewhat religious, these probably are the people that you don't agree with. And if you are a right-wing fundamentalist evangelical, I can't wait to hear from you in the comments. But these are not normal Christians, the Church of Zion. Right? Not normal. Not mainstream. Not mainline Protestants, as they say.
China insists that religion here is free.
Yeah, look at that big church in the background.
It's a claim that's hard to square with what we have found. While some are happy to worship alongside state wishes,
alongside state, some are happy. The vast majority of them are happy.
It feels others are at something of a standstill, caught up in a paralysis of fear, control, and clampdown. The incredible might of this state that feels it must be almighty.
That was a lot. So this particular church that she's talking about is part of a Protestant fundamentalist evangelical sect of Christianity that's very popular in China called the Little Flock movement. It traces its history back to 1922. Little Flock churches are all independent of one another. Again, another reminder that every single church that this reporter mentions as being persecuted is a religious organization that is not registered with the government. There are thousands upon thousands of Christian churches in China that are registered with the government, where its leaders and practitioners have nothing to fear by identifying themselves as Christian and as members of that faith community. Every non-governmental organization in China has to register itself with the government and disclose its finances to the government. I'm a member of Rotary International, a non-sectarian, non-religious organization that does charity work. We do charity work in China, and it's not easy to do charity work in China. You know why? Because Chinese people in the past have used charity as a cover to commit fraud, raising money for fake charities and enriching their members. Rotary clubs operate in every city in China, but we follow the rules and regulations because we understand the reason behind it. Charitable contributions can be used as a cover to steal people's money. Churches are no different. You can put a cross on your building. You can say, praise be to Jesus. You can collect money from your parishioners, and you can buy yourself a nice house with all that money. Why shouldn't charitable organizations be subject to oversight by the government? Nothing in China's religious laws require churches to follow a party line. Chinese religious organizations are not required to have party members in their leadership. They don't have to have government censors approving their sermons. What is so bad, I ask you, about registering your church with the government if you have nothing to hide? These Christian groups will tell you that they want to maintain independence from the government. What does that mean? Again, you might be hearing me say this and think that it's so anti-freedom. But as I said before, is the Chinese government really asking churches to do anything more than other governments ask of its organizations? Well, perhaps it is. Perhaps it's saying, if you want to run a secretive cult in our country that is not transparent, we're going to put you in jail for that. But in America, the land of freedom, you're free to fall under the spell of a charismatic religious leader, give him all your money, give him all your faith, perhaps turn your children over to him for indoctrination, or in many cases, way worse. And then when the aliens come for you, you can pop a little cyanide tablet and wait for them to take you away to another planet. But at least in America, you have the freedom to be exploited by a religious leader. Now, I'm a history teacher, and so for me, people's history looms large in the way they act. And so I think it's worthwhile to take a little walk down memory lane into Chinese history with religious movements. The short version is that for 2,000 years of Chinese history, radical religious movements have been responsible for some of the bloodiest rebellions and collapses of order in Chinese history. The second bloodiest war in all of human history was fought in China between the forces of the Qing dynasty and followers of a man who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ himself. You probably never heard of the Taiping Heavenly Army, but it happened. The Chinese government has very good reason to mistrust secretive religious organizations that do not open their doors to the public. And remember, for the Chinese Communist Party, they see themselves as representative of the Chinese people. And hate to break it to you, they really are. It's also worth remembering that Christianity in particular is a foreign religious belief system. It is something that came into China in the late 1600s. And within a few hundred years of its arrival, people of that same faith forced the Chinese nation to its knees. Islam, while foreign to Chinese religious practices, at least has a long history in China dating back to the beginnings of Islam in the 7th and 8th centuries. The Christianity is certainly seen by Chinese people as a foreign belief system, and perhaps even one with political aspirations. It's hard to find fault with the Chinese government for wanting to make sure that Sunday Mass is not a cover for anti-government sentiment. So let me give you a quick review of all the revolutions in Chinese history that have had religious undercurrents. Let's start with the Han Dynasty. Now, excuse me, some of these have funny names. The Way of the Five Pecks of Rice was founded by a Taoist leader, and it established a theocratic state right here in my home Sichuan province and launched a rebellion against the Han. One of the most famous, the Way of Supreme Peace. That certainly sounds peaceful. Also known as the Yellow Turbans. This was led by a Taoist healer named Zhang Jue, and this movement preached the sky was changing from blue to yellow, signaling a new era. They launched a massive rebellion in 184 CE, which fatally weakened and ended the Han Dynasty. Manichaeism, a foreign religion imported into China from Persia, blended with Taoism and Buddhism and inspired several uprisings. The Fang La Rebellion in 1120 CE was one of the more famous ones during the Northern Song Dynasty. The White Lotus movement, originating as a hybrid of Pure Land Buddhism and Manichaeism, this was a secret society that believed a savior Buddha would descend to earth. They matched up with the Red Turban Rebellion, which successfully overthrew the Yuan dynasty and established the Ming. Oh, and the White Lotuses came back again in 1796 in central China. Oh, and then the Eight Trigrams sect, which was an offshoot of the White Lotus, a group that used Taoist cosmology and martial arts. That sounds a little bit like Falun Gong. They launched the Eight Trigrams Uprising in 1813 and successfully breached the Forbidden City in Beijing and attempted to assassinate the emperor. The Taiping Rebellion that I mentioned earlier was called the God-Worshipping Society and was founded by a guy named Hong Xiuquan, who believed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ. And he launched a syncretic Christian movement from 1850 to 1864, responsible for up to 30 million deaths in China. And then one of the more famous ones that you might learn about in American history, because we supported it, was the Boxer Rebellion, which was the Righteous and Harmonious Fists. This was a movement that practiced spiritual possession, shamanistic rituals, and martial arts. They believed they were invulnerable to foreign bullets. 1899 to 1901. That's just a short list of all the wackaloon religious uprisings that China has experienced. Can you understand now maybe why a secretive religious organization that refuses to be transparent with the government might make authorities in Beijing a little nervous? So I hope you've seen through this video just how manipulative Western media can be when it comes to reporting on China. Again, you are under no obligation to agree with the laws of China, but it's impossible to argue that China does not have freedom of religion. The Chinese government, regardless of whether it's a communist government or an imperial government, does look out for peace and stability above all things. China's long history is full of tragic tales of cult leaders rising up, gathering massive followings, and launching violent campaigns to overthrow the government. Just remember that today in China, there are mosques, synagogues, Buddhist temples, Taoist temples, and Christian churches all over. There's a Christian church 10 minutes from here. There's a mosque 20 minutes from here. I don't know where the local synagogue is, but I know it's here. And all of those organizations have nothing to hide about what they say or what they do from the Chinese government. The persecuted people that you've seen in these videos are people who have all willfully chosen to violate the laws of their own country, knowing that those laws exist, and they're facing the consequences of that. Thanks for watching. Please like and follow for more critiques of bad reporting on China.